Make $80,000 a year and you're still broke. Not because you don't work hard enough, not because the economy is rigged, not because your boss won't give you a raise. You're broke because you think like a poor person who happens to have a decent paycheck. There's a difference, and it's brutal. A poor person with money is just a rich person waiting to go bankrupt. They've got the income, they've got the salary, they might even have the title. But in their head, they're running on a hamster wheel at full speed, going absolutely nowhere, wondering why they're exhausted and still in the same damn cage. I'm Bernard Baruch. I made my first million before I was 30. I kept it through 1929 while men with Harvard degrees were jumping out of windows. I advised 6 presidents, and I'll tell you something they never wanted to hear. Most people are their own worst enemy when it comes to money. Not all people. Most people. And if you're making good money but still living paycheck to paycheck, if you've got the salary but not the net worth, if you're one car repair away from panic, you've got the disease. Let me show you the 9 signs. People love to believe that income equals wealth. They see the $80,000 salary, the $100,000 job offer, the $120,000 contract, and they think, I made it, I'm middle class, I'm doing fine. Then they forget that lifestyle inflates faster than income. You get the raise, you upgrade the apartment. You get the promotion, you lease the newer car. You get the bonus, you book the vacation. Within 6 months, you're spending every dollar you make, just like before, except now you've got bigger bills and fancier problems. That's the cruel joke. Your income went up, but your net worth stayed at 0. I saw lawyers making $150,000 a year living in the same financial position as bartenders making $40,000. Different toys, same broke. The lawyers got the Tesla and the downtown condo. The bartenders got the used Honda and the studio in the suburbs. But neither one can handle a $5,000 emergency without a credit card. That's not wealth. That's just expensive poverty. Sign number 1. You think net worth is for rich people. Let me be clear about something. Net worth isn't some abstract concept for millionaires sitting in penthouses. It's the only number that matters. It's assets minus liabilities. What you own minus what you owe. And if you're not tracking it, you're flying blind. I don't care if you make $60,000 or $600,000. If your net worth is 0 or negative, you're poor. You might have a nice apartment and a decent car, but one layoff, one medical emergency, one bad month, and you're done. Poor people with money don't track net worth because they're afraid of what they'll see. They'd rather pretend everything's fine because the checking account has $3,000 in it this week. Rich people track net worth like a pilot tracks altitude, because they know. Altitude is what saves you when the engine fails. If you don't know your exact net worth right now, down to the dollar, you think like a poor person. I don't care what you make. Sign number 2, you finance depreciating assets. This one is so stupid it almost doesn't deserve explanation, but I'll give it to you anyway. A depreciating asset is something that loses value the moment you buy it. Cars, furniture, electronics, gadgets, clothes, anything that's worth less next year than it is today. And you're taking out loans to buy them. You're paying interest on things that are actively losing value. That's not financial strategy. That's financial suicide. I saw people making $70,000 a year with a $600 car payment, $200 for furniture they bought at 0% interest, $150 for the laptop they had to have. They're paying $950 a month for stuff that's losing value every single day. Meanwhile, the car's depreciating, the furniture's wearing out, the laptop's obsolete in 3 years, and they're still making payments. Here's the paradox. Rich people finance appreciating assets, real estate that goes up, businesses that generate cash flow, investments that compound. Poor people finance depreciating garbage that drags them underwater. If you've got a car payment on anything other than a vehicle you absolutely need for work, and you don't have $50,000 in investments, you think like a poor person. Don't fool yourself. You're not building wealth. You're renting a lifestyle you can't afford. Sign number 3. You celebrate income, not net worth milestones. When you get a raise, what do? If your first instinct is to upgrade something, to reward yourself, to finally buy that thing you've been wanting, you think like a poor person. Rich people celebrate net worth milestones: $100,000 saved, $250,000 in investments, $1 million in assets. Those are the moments that matter, because those are the moments when money starts working for you instead of the other way around. Poor people celebrate income milestones. I finally make 6 figures. Great. And you're spending $105,000. You're still broke, just with nicer furniture. I remember men in the 1920s making fortunes in the market, $50,000, $100,000 a year, which was real money back then. They'd celebrate every big trade, every big commission, every big week. They bought the suits, the cars, the club memberships. Then 1929 hit, and they had nothing. Because income evaporates. Net worth is what you keep when the music stops. If you don't have a target net worth number and you're not tracking progress toward it every single month, you think like a poor person. Sign number 4. You don't understand the power of compounding, or you understand it and you're still not using it. This one kills me. Everyone's heard of compounding. Everyone knows the story. You save $500 a month. It grows at 8% a year. In 30 years, you've got $745,000. They've seen the charts. They've read the articles. They nod their heads and say, "Yeah, that makes sense." Then they don't do it. They save $500 one month. Then the transmission blows and they pull it back out. They save $1,000. Then they book a trip to Miami. They save $2,000. Then they decide they need a new couch because the old one's embarrassing when guests come over. Here's the brutal truth. Compounding only works if you leave the money alone. It's not about putting money in. It's about never taking it out. It's about letting it sit there, boring and untouched, for years and years while it grows. Poor people treat their savings like a reservoir. They fill it up, they drain it, they fill it up again. Rich people treat it like a snowball rolling downhill. Every dollar you add makes it bigger. Every year it rolls makes it faster. But you can't keep stopping the snowball to take a chunk off the top. That defeats the entire point. If you've been making decent money for 5 years and you don't have at least $50,000 in investments that you haven't touched, you think like a poor person. You understand compounding in theory. You're ignoring it in practice. Sign number 5. You don't have an emergency fund, or you have one and you rate it for non-emergencies. Let me tell you what an emergency is. Medical crisis, job loss, major home repair that makes the place unlivable, car accident that totals your only vehicle. You know what's not an emergency? The vacation you didn't plan for, the wedding you got invited to, the holiday gifts you forgot to budget, the sale that's too good to pass up. Poor people with money treat their emergency fund like a slush fund. It's there, so they use it. Then when the real emergency hits, they're back on the credit card, paying 24% interest on a $4,000 ER bill because they spent the emergency fund on a weekend in Vegas. That's not bad luck. That's bad thinking. I saw engineers making $90,000 a year with no emergency fund. Zero. Nothing. When I asked why, they said, "I've got credit cards with a $30,000 limit. That's my emergency fund." That's not an emergency fund. That's a disaster waiting to happen. Because when you lose your job and you can't make the minimum payment, that $30,000 limit disappears and you're left with nothing but a trashed credit score and a debt collector calling your phone. If you don't have at least 6 months of expenses saved in an account you never touch except for real emergencies, you think like a poor person. And if you've rated that account 3 times this year, you definitely think like a poor person. Sign number 6. You believe you deserve things you haven't earned. This one's ugly, but it's true. Poor people think lifestyle is a right. They think because they work hard, because they show up, because they put in the hours, they deserve the nice apartment, the new car, the dinners out, the streaming services, the gadgets. Rich people know lifestyle is a privilege you buy with net worth, not income. You don't deserve a $2,500 apartment because you make $75,000. You can afford a $2,500 apartment if you make $75,000 and you're willing to stay broke forever. You don't deserve a $50,000 SUV because you got a promotion. You can finance a $50,000 SUV, and you can spend the next 6 years paying interest on a depreciating asset while your net worth goes nowhere. Here's the difference. Rich people delay gratification until they can afford it without damage. Poor people buy it now and pay for it forever. I've seen people making $100,000 a year living in tiny apartments, driving old cars, eating boring meals, because they're saving 40% of their income. And I've seen people making $100,000 a year living in luxury apartments, driving leased BMWs, eating at trendy restaurants, saving nothing. 10 years later, the first group has $400,000 in the bank and options. The second group has zero in the bank and a lifestyle they can't afford to quit. That's the trap. You build a life based on income, and then you can't escape it, because cutting back feels like failure. If you buy things because you deserve them, not because you can afford them without derailing your financial progress, you think like a poor person. Sign number 7. You don't invest, or you invest scared. Let me be clear. Cash is not wealth. Cash is a tool. It's a placeholder. It's what you use to buy things and pay bills. But sitting in a checking account, cash is dying. Inflation is eating it. Every year, your $20,000 in the bank is worth less than it was the year before. Poor people hoard cash because it feels safe. Rich people invest cash because they understand that safety is an illusion. The only real safety is growing your wealth faster than inflation destroys it. But here's where it gets tricky. Poor people who do invest make one of two mistakes. They either don't invest at all because they're terrified of losing money, or they invest recklessly because they're desperate to get rich quick. Neither works. I saw people in the 20s making wild bets on margin, putting up 10% and borrowing 90%, thinking they were geniuses. Then 1929 hit and they lost everything, including money they didn't have. I also saw people so scared of the market that they kept everything in cash and bonds paying 3%, and they stayed poor forever. The right way to invest is boring. Index funds, diversification, dollar cost averaging, automatic contributions every single month, whether the market's up or down, no panic selling. No euphoria buying, just slow, steady, compounding growth. If you're making $70,000 a year and you're not investing at least $500 a month in a boring index fund, you think like a poor person. You're letting fear or ignorance rob you of the only tool that builds real wealth. Sign number 8. You care more about looking rich than being rich. This one is poison. Poor people buy status. Rich people buy assets. It's that simple. The $60,000 truck to impress your neighbors. The designer handbag to flex on Instagram. The expensive watch because it signals success. The first-class upgrade because you want people to know you've made it. All of it is garbage. Status is a drug. You buy a little, you feel good for a week, then you need more. You lease the BMW, but now the guy next to you has the Mercedes. You buy the Rolex, but your coworker's got the Patek Philippe. You upgrade to business class, but now you're eyeing the private jet. It never ends. The treadmill speeds up and you're running faster just to stay in place. Here's the irony. Actual rich people don't care about status. They wear boring clothes, drive practical cars, live in reasonable houses, because they're not trying to prove anything. Their net worth does the talking. They don't need the $10,000 handbag because they've got $10 million in investments. Poor people with money need the handbag because it's all they've got. I remember seeing men after the crash, men who'd made $100,000 a year, standing in soup lines. They'd spent it all on appearances, the suits, the clubs, the cars. When the money stopped, they had nothing. No savings, no investments, just the memory of looking successful. If you bought anything in the last year primarily because of what other people will think, you think like a poor person. Sign number 9. You have no plan, or you have a plan you don't follow. Here's the thing about plans. Everyone's got one until they see something they want. Poor people make plans all the time. They're going to save $1,000 a month. They're going to pay off the credit cards. They're going to max out the 401k. They're going to build an emergency fund. Then the plan meets reality. The concert tickets go on sale. The friends are going to Cabo. The new iPhone drops. The plan goes in the trash, and they tell themselves they'll start again next month. Next month never comes. Rich people have plans and they follow them like religion. Not because they're more disciplined, but because they've internalized something poor people haven't. Short-term pleasure is the enemy of long-term wealth. Every dollar you spend today is a dollar that can't compound tomorrow. Every month you delay is a year you add to the end of your working life. Every stupid purchase is a brick in the prison you're building for yourself. I saw people in the market with perfect plans. They knew when to buy, when to sell, when to get out. Then they'd get greedy or scared, and they'd do the opposite. The plan didn't fail. They failed the plan. If you don't have a written financial plan with specific numbers and specific timelines, you think like a poor person. And if you have a plan but you've broken it 3 times this year because you deserved a break or this was a special occasion, you definitely think like a poor person. Here's the difference between you and the rich. They have capital that works while they sleep. You don't. Capital is a soldier. You send it into battle, and it comes back with more soldiers. You send those soldiers into battle, and they come back with even more. After a while, you've got an army, and the army fights for you whether you show up or not. That's what compounding looks like. That's what investments do. They fight battles on your behalf, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year after year. Now compare that to your situation. You work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You trade your time for dollars. When you stop working, the dollars stop coming. You've got no soldiers. You've got no army. You're out there alone, swinging the sword yourself every single day. The person with capital is building an empire. You're stuck on the hamster wheel. That's what leverage looks like. That's what wealth looks like. It's not about how much you make. It's about how much of your money is out there, working, compounding, growing, while you do something else. If you're 35 years old and you don't have at least $50,000 in investments, you're not even in the game. You're on the sidelines, watching other people build wealth, wondering why it's not happening for you. It's not happening because you think like a poor person. There's a moment in wealth building that feels almost supernatural. It's the day you check your investment account and you realize your money made more in a month than you did at your job. Until then, you're grinding. You're saving $500 here, $1,000 there. It feels slow. It feels pointless. You look at the balance and you think, $30,000. That's nothing. That won't change my life. Then you hit $100,000. Then $200,000. Then the market goes up 20% one year and your account jumps $50,000 and you didn't do anything. You didn't work overtime. You didn't get a promotion. Your money just grew on its own because that's what capital does when you leave it alone long enough. And you realize you've crossed the line. Your capital starts to work harder than you do. It whispers, you can slow down now. You can take the foot off the gas. I've got this. That freedom is what changes your psychology forever. For the first time, you're not dependent on a paycheck. You're not one bad month away from disaster. You're not trading every hour of your life for dollars. You're free. But most people never get there. Not because they can't, because they think like poor people. They spend the raises. They finance the cars. They raid the emergency fund. They chase status. They break the plan. And they stay broke forever, no matter how much they make. But here's the warning. Even when you get there, even when you've built the net worth and the investments and the freedom, you can still blow it. I've seen it happen 100 times. Guy finally hits $200,000 in savings, feels invincible, decides he can afford the $80,000 truck now, takes out the loan, figures he's got the cushion. 6 months later, he loses his job, can't make the truck payment, and he's liquidating investments to cover the gap. Within a year, he's back at $100,000, wondering what happened. Or the woman who finally builds $150,000 in her 401k. Then her friend starts a business and needs investors. She pulls $50,000 out, pays the penalties, pays the taxes, invests in the business. The business fails. She's down $70,000 when you factor in the lost growth. It takes her 8 years to recover. Or the couple who saves for a decade, builds $300,000 in net worth, then decides they deserve the bigger house. They stretch the budget, buy the $600,000 house, and suddenly they're house poor. No cash flow, no savings rate. The net worth stops growing because every dollar is going to the mortgage. The cruel truth is this: building wealth requires patience. Keeping it requires discipline. Growing it requires focus. Screw up any of the three and you're back at zero, starting over, watching younger people pass you because they didn't make your mistakes. And don't fool yourself. The market doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care that you worked hard or that you sacrificed or that you finally got ahead. One bad decision and you're back in the cage. 9 signs you think like a poor person, even if you make good money. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Income is not wealth. Wealth is what you keep, what you grow, what works for you when you're not working. But it's brutal, and it's unforgiving, and you have to fight for every dollar, every month, every year, if you want to escape the trap most people die in. Nobody can build wealth with zero discipline. Nobody can build wealth if they're financing depreciating garbage and chasing status and raiding their savings every time something shiny appears. Nobody can save you if you're sabotaging yourself with poor thinking. It's not about making more money. It's not about picking stocks. It's not about getting lucky. It's about discipline. Stop financing things that lose value. Track your net worth every month. Build an emergency fund and never touch it. Invest boring money in boring index funds and leave it alone for decades. Delay gratification until you can afford the lifestyle without killing your future. Repeat until your capital works harder than you do. Simple, brutal, unforgiving. If you can't do this, nobody can help you. If you can, you'll wake up 10 years from now with $500,000 in investments and options you can't even imagine right now. People love to overcomplicate wealth building. They want the secret strategy, the magic investment, the insider tip that makes them rich overnight. They read books, they watch videos, they follow gurus, and they ignore the one thing that actually works. Save more than you spend, invest the difference, and don't touch it for 30 years. That's it. That's the entire game. But most people can't do it. They think like poor people. They buy the truck, they finance the furniture, they raid the savings, they chase the status. And they stay broke forever, wondering why wealth building doesn't work for them. It works. They just won't do what it takes. Most won't do it. That's why most stay broke, or one emergency away from broke, or trapped in jobs they hate because they can't afford to quit. But if you have patience, discipline, and the ability to delay gratification, you can make it. And when you do, your entire life changes. You stop worrying about money. You start making decisions based on what you want, not what you can afford. You walk into work knowing you could walk out any time and be fine. That's freedom. That's wealth. That's what thinking like a rich person gets you. So here's the bottom line. If you're making good money and you're still broke, stop blaming the economy. Stop blaming your boss. Stop blaming bad luck. Look in the mirror and ask yourself which of these 9 signs you're living. Then fix it. Because until you stop thinking like a poor person, you'll stay poor, no matter how much you make. And if you're not willing to track your net worth, delay gratification, and invest boring money in boring funds for boring decades, I can't help you. Nobody can.